and you had a meal, Samach Mincha, you started the meal. So the Mishnah stated that if you started a meal, Samach Mincha, you could technically continue eating the meal as long as you're careful to, when you conclude the meal, you go ahead and you will have, you have enough time to conclude your meal and pray Mincha. So the Mishnah stated that even though we know Mincha is a chova, Mincha is an obligation, it's still there's a lenience, and the rabbis created a fence to ensure that you should not miss mincha. So they said when you're close to the time of mincha, which we had a discussion exactly what time is that, you can't start a meal. But if you started the meal, we said you can continue. You don't have to stop your meal. So the Gemara had a question because Abaye said that our friends in Bavel, that according to the opinion that says Arvit is a reshut, that Arvit doesn't have the same level of obligation like Mincha, that if you started Arvit, if you started eating, you could continue eating. You don't have to stop. The implication is, according to the opinion that says Arvit is an obligation, if you started eating, you would have to stop. If it's an obligation, like if it's the same level obligation of Mincha, if you started eating, you would have to stop. You would have to stop your eating in order to pray Arvit right away. The Gemara had a question. We know Mincha is an obligation, and yet we say you do not have to stop eating if you started eating at the time you weren't supposed to start eating, as long as you have enough time. So why is it that Arvit, we're going to be more strict when it comes to Arvit, by Ma'ariv, if it's an obligation, just like the other prayers, then you would have to stop. Why should we be more strict by Arvit than Mincha? Adam, is it clear? That's the Gemara's question, right? Right, Mark? That's what we spoke about. And we gave one answer. We said was, Mincha time, people are not really don't get drunk, but Arvit, people get drunk more. So therefore we're more concerned by Arvit, that if at night you started a meal, if you're going to allow him to continue the meal, what does he do during the meal? He drinks. He has some wine, and he might get intoxicated. He might fall asleep. He might not pray. However, when it comes to mincha is not common to get drunk. It's just not common to get drunk. So we're not so concerned that if he started his meal, he'll finish his meal. He won't get drunk, and he'll be able to pray. Right? That's what we said. So Tosfos points out, the Gemara says in Ta'anit, that Shachrit and Musaf, it's not common that people are drunk at that time of the day, and therefore we do Birkat Kohanim. When do we do Birkat Kohanim? At Shachrit and Musaf. Mincha time, we don't do Birkat Kohanim. The question is, why is there no Birkat Kohanim by Mincha? Why don't the Kohanim go up and do Birkat Kohanim? Same way they do it at Shachrit and Musaf. Why should they do it at Mincha? You hear the question, Mark?
Yeah, of course. We don't do it.
We don't do it. And the question
was they're drinking too, because they're drinking.
We're afraid of drinking. So the Mark said we're afraid of...
But not on a fast day.
Right.
Fast day, you do Birkat Kohanim.
Right, but they're not drinking.
So clearly no cheapers.
So there's no concern. So why is it that if you're telling me there's a concern of mincha time, of drinking? But we just said in our Gemara that mincha time, we're not concerned of drinking. People are not getting drunk at mincha. And therefore we allow you to continue eating your meal if you started your meal when close to mincha time or after mincha time, we allow you to continue eating your meal because you're not going to get drunk. But we said we don't do birkat kohanim at mincha because every people are going to get. Well, we don't do birkat kohanim at mincha. So it seems like we are concerned about the drinking at mincha time, right? We say you do birkat kohanim in the morning, but you don't do it in the afternoon because of the issue of drinking. But you just told me there's no concern. Issue of drinking is at night, not in the afternoon. So Tosfos says that there birkat kohanim, we're worried even if you drank a reviyit, even if you drank a few ounces of wine, you can't do birkat kohanim. You have to wait till you become sober. So therefore, it's not so much we're worried about being drunk so much by mincha time, but there's a concern people drink, because people drink at mincha time, that's the real concern. And you might come, and if you're going to allow Birkat Kohanim in the afternoon time, guy might have just come off his meal. He might have just had lunch. He might have had a cup of wine during his lunchtime or whatever it is, and he'll do Birkat Kohanim under the influence of the alcohol. We can't do that. So therefore, we don't want the Kohanim to give their blessing on the influence of alcohol, even though maybe
Isn't it because you're afraid that if they're drinking, they actually won't bless you, that they'll curse you? Like, what's the real reason of not letting them do it? It's not just because they had a glass of wine. It has to be that the result of it would be tainted or affected.
Yes, I would think their mind is affected, like you're saying, but I don't know if I will say they might maybe give a curse. I would just say maybe that because they're not in their full 100%, that totally there, and it's not respectful. Maybe perhaps to give a bracha, in such a state. I mean,
then let's go further. Then, so we know that you shouldn't say arbit after you eat because you drank, and if you drank, you shouldn't pray when you're drunk. But from Minha, we're saying that's not the case. But because they don't expect you to drink, but you don't do Birkat Kohanim for Mincha. But now you're telling me it's not because they're going to have bad intention when they're blessing you. It's because it's not respectful. So if it's not respectful, then it should apply the same thing to Mincha, which means you should not eat until you pray, because we're afraid if you drink, then your blessings are going to be not respectful. So if we're going to be so machmir to tell you can't do Birkat Kohanim, then we should tell you that you can't eat. Because if you eat, you're going to be disrespectful. With your prayers will not be in the right kavanah.
Right. So I would say, Mark, we're more strict when it comes to Birkat Kohanim than perhaps the Ma'ariv itself. How do you like that idea? Because there's a special.
So what I'm suggesting is yes, okay. So you're more strict on that. I guess the best way to explain it is it has to be more than just disrespectful, because if it was just disrespectful, it would apply to Mincha also.
Right. So now you are correct that we obviously I try to be careful about that. Let's see if we'll take out a Mishnah Brura about Chafetz Chaim. 1 second. Let's take a look. You see, you recall, I think there was a story, Yaakov and Esav. When Yaakov bought the Bechorah from Esav, Yaakov said, why did he buy the Bechorah from Esav? Because he said Esav was not going to treat the Bechorah properly. It wasn't going to treat the firstbornship properly, because and Esav and also Esav was not. Esav's going to be the rabbi. Esav's a murderer. He's a rapist. He's going to be the rabbi. So when Esav says to Yaakov, like Esav says, when Esav sold the firstbornship, he says, "Lama li bechorah." He said, "What do I need?" Hine anochi holech lamut. He said he's going to die. Anyway. He's going to die as a result of the firstbornship, because Esav asked Yaakov, like, what is written? What are some responsibilities of being a bechor? You have to do the service, and you're not allowed to be under the influence of alcohol. So he says he's going to, and if you're under the influence of alcohol, he could die for it. So Esav says, I don't want to.
I thought he said he's going to die because he's hunting always, and he's in the field, and he's always with the wild animals.
He spoke about the fact that he's going to be under the influence of the wine, of the wine.
Yeah.
Now let's see over here in the Shulchan Aruch. It says if a person drinks wine, the amount of a revi'it, like let's say 3 ounces or so of wine. He's not supposed to pray until the wine has, this is Simon Sadik Tet in Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Cairo. Morning, Ralph.
Morning,
He's
Rabbi.
not allowed to pray until the wine has
Good
already
morning.
has removed its effect. You don't feel the wine anymore. Even though, what do you say? Even though you generally drink a lot and you don't get drunk by drinking just 3 ounces, nevertheless, you can't pray if you drank 3 ounces until the
Thank you.
effect of the wine is off you.
Thank you.
But if you drank more, but if you drank more than a revi'it, if you're able to talk properly in front of a king, meaning it hasn't affected your speech, and your speech is normal. If you prayed, then the prayer is a prayer, meaning after the effect, called b'di'avad, after the fact, meaning you're not supposed to pray if you're under the influence of wine. But if you went in, you prayed and you're under the influence of wine, if the wine that you drank did not affect you in any way, your way you would talk, in front of people is normal. It's then the prayer after the fact, you get credit for the prayer. Now, I would say that we would be more strict. So Mark, I would say that we're much more strict regarding to the guy who does the Birkat Kohanim under the influence of wine. After we have to see what it says about that compared to this.
If you're saying that if he could speak in front of the king
Properly.
properly, which means I could recite all the benefit of the Amidah,
Right, and
I say it all clearly and not slurring, etc., then
b'di'avad,
yeah,
if
it's
you
okay.
right.
But
Kohanim
is
Right. So I'm saying the Kohanim will probably be a higher, presume it's a higher level, I would say, more strict. Will be more strict. So the question is also what will be the case, meaning after the fact, meaning what happens is,
yeah.
What is the
We're not
responsibility?
even giving him the chance.
Right.
We're not giving anyone the chance.
Both of them we're not giving a chance, right? Even if he doesn't feel the wine, he still can't pray. He has to wait. I'm sorry. If he feels the wine, he can't pray, even if he can talk properly, right? So, but I still would say we're still more strict with this.
Obviously,
But
you have a guy, if you have a Kohen that never had a drink in his life, he doesn't drink, he still can't do it.
right, but I'm saying because Birkat Kohanim is in the Mikdash, and it's a much stricter prohibition. I would say being on the influence of wine. It's about wine, and now when your question was, what's the issue with the wine? I said, is it because it sounds like because it affects you, and it's not, that's what it sounds like. We have to look more into it, into the halacha more about it. But that's now. See, the question is every day. What do you want the guy? The guy needs to pray. So now the question is, are we supposed to say? Are we supposed to be concerned? So what's the question? Are we supposed to be concerned that maybe he's under the influence of wine? And therefore, what do we want to do? We want to say that the guy can't pray at all? Meaning, what is the option? The question that you're asking. When it comes to Birkat Kohanim, we're going to say, listen, you gave the bracha in the morning. You gave the bracha, the blessing you already gave in the morning. So now that you might be under the influence of alcohol, so we say, let's avoid, don't give the blessing in the afternoon. Right? So what are you missing out? You're missing out. You're not getting the blessing from the Kohanim out of concern that maybe he's under the influence of alcohol, but you got the blessing in the morning. What do you want to say for the guy regarding mincha? You want to say don't do what? Don't. So either you could say don't pray mincha. Either you could say don't ever pray mincha because you might be under the influence of alcohol. But then, so we rather you.
I'd say the same thing you said about beef. If I'm saying you might come to drink, so you have to pray before you eat, so the mincha should have the same
So,
thing.
so Arvit, the issue is,
Because if you're gonna say, I'm gonna read about the kat kohanim, in case you drank, so now in case you drank, don't, make sure you don't drink, and mincha is higher than arbi. So now,
very good. So the answer, Mark, is Arvit. The only reason why we
no.
right. So let's answer your question. Good morning, Emmanuel. The reason why Arvit, the only reason why we say you have to stop is because you get drunk by Arvit. That's the concern, Mark. No, you don't get drunk by mincha. Mincha, you only drink a little bit. Mincha in the afternoon. That's the difference.
In theory.
In theory, that's right. That's what the Gemara is saying. Meaning, Tosfos is
But
putting.
even if you drink kat kohanim, and you could pray as long as you could speak in front of a king, because you only had a little. But by arbi, you drink a lot, so you can't do it, so you can't eat before you.
And you got it. Exactly. We're afraid by that you're going to come to get drunk. Right, right. And it's exactly what you just said. So therefore, we're much more concerned at nighttime. We're going to tell more than the mincha time.
Meaning more in volume.
More, because it's going to be more in volume. So therefore, we are more strict. We would be more strict by nighttime. We'll tell the guy, if you started your meal, stop. By mincha time, if you started the meal, continue. Because there's much more at night. You might come to get drunk, and you won't pray. Mincha, what's the concern? You're not going to get drunk. You're not drinking, so you have to go back to work. It's only mincha time. The day's not over yet. Why do people get drunk at night? Because the day's over. No. Now mincha, you're not going to get drunk. So what are we concerned? So there is a concern, like you said. Maybe you're gonna pray under the influence. Still, you drank something. Okay, if I did, but the evidence, I would get credit for it if I didn't, even though I'm not supposed to do it. So it's much less of a concern. So therefore, we allow you to go ahead and to continue your eating. Now, that's one approach the Gemara says. Then the Gemara says the second approach. We are now on 10a, towards 10a, 10a1. Inami, the Gemara says, there are 4 lines from the top in English. Or another reason why mincha is different than arvit is the way of how people deal. Mincha, kivan de kivila zimna. Mincha has a set time. Mirtat, mirtat will oti lemifshat. You know, we're 5 lines from the top in the English. 10a1. Inami, b'mincha. B'mincha, kivan de kivila is zimna. There's a set time for mincha, meaning a very short window of time to. There's a set time. You got a couple of mincha has a set window, a small window. Mirtat v'loatil nishat. You are concerned. You are afraid, and you won't come to be negligent and forget and to daven. You know it's on your mind. I only got a short amount of time left. However, we know the nature of people of arvit. By nighttime, I have the whole night to pray arvit. Meaning, maybe it's better to pray before chatzot, before midnight. You have to say Shema before midnight. Maybe it's better to pray before midnight. But even the kuli laila is man arvit. The whole night is the time for arvit. Lo mirtat. The person's not so afraid, not so concerned. He has confidence in himself. He's overly confident. I'll pray later. And then you know what happens when you say you're going to pray later? Doesn't happen. I'm sorry to say. That's worse, and therefore exactly. It's a fascinating answer the Gemara says, right? And some people have told me in the community that Rabbi, I miss my rib a lot. I come home, I say I'll pray later, and I don't pray. So I told them, don't, when you come home, you pray and then you eat. Don't delay, do right away. And that's what the Torah says. The Torah says when it's nighttime, people come home, they pray. The Torah says the great concern was mincha. There wasn't such a concern so much, meaning people did not have such trouble by praying shachrit in the old days, because you get up in the morning, you pray. They didn't have such a problem. Arvit, they came home. If they didn't have a minyan, they came home and they prayed first thing. But mincha, when you're smack in the middle of the day, that's the most challenging prayer. And therefore, he says you have to be extra careful in mincha. And you have to, and the reward is amazing for mincha, because when the thing that's more challenging, the more the reward is. That's why Eliyahu Hanavi was answered by mincha prayer. because of that power of the mincha. People, it's only a few minutes. How long is mincha? 10, 15 minutes, but it's not so long, whatever it is. But people should realize the power of the mincha. So now the Gemara said before that in Bavel, they used to wear their belt tight belt, and then once they took off their belt, they loosened their belt. We say that's called starting the meal, and they don't have to stop. They can continue. They continue, and then when the meal is over, then they could pray. So Rav Sheshet had difficulty understanding. Well, what's the big deal? You took off your belt, so put back your belt. So why shouldn't you have to put back your belt in order to pray? Why do we say that you have to? You know what? If you took off your belt, you can continue eating. We're not, the same way. If you, what? Also, let him pray without his belt. Both points. Is it such a big deal to put back your belt? So what? That's question number. Meaning, if you tell me you're in the middle of a meal and you actually started eating, I can understand that you tell a guy to stop in the middle of the eating. It's a much more difficult thing. He's already more hungry. The appetite has opened up. But just to take off the belt. Furthermore, let him pray without the belt. Let him just pray. But the Gemara says no. He has to have the belt. The Gemara says he's supposed to be wearing proper clothing, nice, decent clothing in front of Hashem. Right. They call that a gartel, right? So some use this Gemara, as maybe a source, as the idea of right. That's right, because the Sfardim and even many Ashkenazim, the Hasidim are very particular about it. The Hasidim all put on they put on the gartel, but the Ashkenazim and many Ashkenazim are lenient, like myself and others, because many of us hold that the point of the belt has to serve as a separation between your chest and your bottom of your body, your lower area.
The style of clothing.
Right. They had the style of clothing that they had. At least they had this. Everybody. It seems like everybody. At least they had a belt they wore it tight, right? It could be the other people also might have worn belts. The only question is how tight the belt was, right? Right. There are people that loosen their belt before they eat.
That's not the belt up.
Right, you're not talking about right. You're not right. Right, like the garter, like their black belt that they put on when they pray. Mark is talking about the Hasidim put on this. Now the question is, the Gemara is saying,
told that if your pants separate your top,
right, as long as the pants are not very extremely loose.
So that this guy might be wearing a robe.
Right, exactly. Though they might not have been wearing proper undergarments that go against the body.
Oh.
Right, so therefore, if they're not wearing a proper, right. I mean, if a person wants to, you come out of a shower, you have a robe, you put a robe on, but if you don't have, you need to have a belt. If you want to say a bracha, even if you're fully covered, but still there's the point that your heart should not see your nakedness. There should be a separation between the heart and your nakedness when you say a blessing, out of respect for the blessing. So therefore, that's the idea. So if a person wears undergarment or has pants that's going against his body, that will act as a separation between his heart and his nakedness. What's that again? Underwear is considered a separation. Say it again? Underwear is separation because it goes against the body. And that serves as it addresses the point of the heart not seeing the nakedness. But so the Gemara, you see, the Gemara asked the question, why shouldn't he pray, without the belt? And the Gemara says the reason is because he called Mishum Shenema, he called the Krat Elokecha Yisrael. It says you're supposed to be proper when you pray in front of Hashem, and it's not prop now. So the little rule sounds like the Gemara. The little thing is you have to have a belt, which means you have to be certain type of level of respect. You look, without having the belt on, it's not a proper way of dress in front of the king.
But
So
again, this person wearing it might not be wearing pants, it might be wearing a robe.
right, so that's the question. How to understand this Gemara? Is it because he's, like Mark said, he might not be wearing proper undergarments, and therefore he needs this belt to go to separate between his chest and his nakedness? Or is this just a different idea? Nothing, not to do that. You're going to pray, you have to dress up a certain way. And without a belt, the normal way of dress was probably a proper way of dress. It's like you're missing something. You're not wearing, same way, if you're missing your shirt, you might say it's not, a guy says, I take off my shirt, I'm going to pray without my shirt on. Not respectful. You're not dressed respectful in front of, right? So, right, shoes, unless maybe if you're in the Middle Eastern countries where it's normal to go without shoes, so then maybe that would be a different.
What's the matter?
No, you look like you were looking funny.
I was looking.
Because if the normal thing, if you were standing in front of a nobleman, a king, or someone of greatness, that would be the norm. So then you're standing in front of Hashem that way, that you would be able to do. If that would be the norm, we generally hold you shouldn't be praying barefoot because that's not the norm. You don't go in front of the president barefoot. But let's say you're in Saudi Arabia or something, or you're in those type of countries, then there's room to say that since that's the norm that they would stand, if that's the way you stand in front of a king, you can stand in front of Hashem also that way. That's the norm. It's not any way being disrespectful. But here you can't. Here you can't. Right, because you don't. Right, you're not supposed to. Right, we're going to see that in that. Right, because it's lack of respect. It's not being respectful. If you go ahead, you wouldn't go in front of a king. And therefore, by the way, how appropriate is it to pray with shorts on? I would say it's based on this, it's not so appropriate, but I always say better they should pray with the shorts than not pray at all. You know what I mean? But really, is that the way to pray? Is that the way you would go in front of a? They don't really let it. They don't let it with shorts. But some shows in the summer not so makbid, and you make a minyan near the ball field, near the court. But because I think it's better, better do what you can do than they know better enough. That's what I would say. But ideally, really, they're supposed to do is the morning they're supposed to have this throw something over you, take something over you, and you after the game throw something over you and you pray. That's really what you're supposed to. Right. It did say right. Hey, yes, correct. Right.
They just didn't do that. So
right.
Started
later when they washed their hands. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you're correct. The meal started when they took off the belt. You're 100% correct, Adam. But the Gemara had a question. But why let them just pray with the belt off? I mean, what's the big why? The Gemara had
Leave it off and pray, but you gotta pray before you eat. Oh.
The first question was, so why don't you let him pray? Meaning, and we let the guy to continue eating, technically, right? If it's afternoon, if it would be the mincha time, let's say it'll be afternoon mincha, we would let the guy continue. If he took off his belt, we say, go eat, no problem. And then after you finish eating, meaning you should not have taken off your belt. If you took off your belt, now continue eating, and afterwards pray. But the Gemara had a question: what's the big issue of praying without the belt? Why should you tell the guy you could continue eating? Just let him just pray like that. He really took off the belt. You could maybe the Gemara understood that once you start eating, your hands get dirty. Maybe you can't say you go pray like that. And now you have to ask the guy to go wash his hands and stop eating. But the guy just loosened his belt, took off his belt. So let him just pray like that. So the Gemara, good morning, David. The Gemara says there's a problem because you're not properly in front of Hashem. Now, what does that mean? Does that just mean because, imagine if I would have my belt off, I would take off my belt. Maybe that's not maybe a nice look. Might not be a normal look. So if it's not a normal look, even though I might be I'm wearing under things, but it has to do with looking nice. You hear what I'm saying, Mom? What? I mean, our society, maybe people look fine without a belt, right? But there was a time period, it's only still part of this as years go on. Socialization, but it was not normal. I don't think. Right. People walk right. For example, 40 years ago, was it normal a guy walking out without a belt? I don't know how normal it was. They were, I mean,
Go back 40 years.
everywhere were neckties. Right, Shabbat, you're talking about, at least Shabbat. Right, it was not normal. Because that was the way. That's what, yeah, right. You go in front of a king. You don't put on you don't walk without you put on a tie in front of a king. That's why people be more formal. That's what people. Yeah. But in the yeshiva, I take off my tie when I'm not praying, not by prayer, but learning and take off the tie. I want to be one of the boys. You know what I mean? I don't want to feel like I'm. Yeah.
You are.
Morning, everybody. So. Yeah, exactly. Up to you. We're going to talk about your talk. Morning. So some Rishonim now. So again, but just to, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Sadik Aleph Sif Bet, look what he said in Siman Sadik Sif Bet, just to discuss this issue, based on our Gemara, Sarich La'azah Izah B'Shat Tefillah. How do you listen to this? Listen to this. What it says for the Sfardim, at least so far. You have to wear a belt when you pray, even though you already have a belt that you don't see your erah. Even though according to the Shulchan, at least opening up, he says in addition to what you have, you have to have a special belt for prayer because that's it's a way of adorning yourself. Like putting on a belt is it's a very respectable thing. So the Chafetz Chaim says most probably what the people rely on. Some say that's only someone who the whole day wears a belt. But if someone goes the whole day without a belt, you don't have to put on a belt. Okay? So therefore, that's what everyone's going to rely on. That we don't wear, meaning if you wear a belt the whole day, like let's say for me, according to this, I wear a belt the whole day, right? This is how I adorn myself. This is how I wear. This is my way of formality. So now it comes to prayer, I leave my belt off. That's not appropriate because I'm not dressing myself. I'm dressing down for prayer. That's a no good. Anything like that. But no, so a necktie also. I always go with a necktie. So that's why when I pray, I put on my necktie. I don't keep it off. When I learn, I take off my necktie. But when I morning, but when I put it on, yeah. It's it's off. I put on specifically in honor of Mincha, specifically in honor of Arvid. But it's a beautiful idea. You can't go ahead and dress down for Mincha. That's how you wear. So, the question is, let's say same thing. If a person wears a jacket, you wear a jacket always. Now when it comes to pray, you take off, you take your jacket. That's not appropriate. You put the jacket on. You don't keep your jacket off. So that is and then he says, other brachot, you're allowed to say without, even if you generally, other brachot, you could pray without, as long as you have something against your body, like you have someone like the underpants or anything against your body, that's good enough for other brachot. But when it comes to prayer, if you usually wear, that's what we're saying, then you have to have this extra belt that we're talking about. Okay. Now let's continue in the Gemara. Rava bar Avhuna, Amat, he Rami Pusmaki. He would put on linen shoes, umatzali, and he prayed. He wanted to put on something nice, and you know why he did that? Morning, Jack. Why did he do that? He says, you know what? He based on this pasuk in Amos. He says, I'm going to greet God. I have a meeting. Who are you meeting with? I'm going to pray. Who are you meeting? I'm praying with God. I gotta dress a certain way, certain type of respect. to pray, Rava Shade Glimei. He had a nice, used to wear a nice robe, and he would, when it came to pray, he would put the robe in back if he didn't want to look like such an honorable person. I'm wearing this fancy, imagine Rabbi Vadi Yosef, that Sephardi thing, he said, when he's coming to pray, that's good for the front of the people, but coming to pray in front of Hashem, he would throw the rope to the back, so to speak, and he would go ahead and he would pray, he would put his hands like this and pray like a servant, like in a certain type of awe. He says, Omar, I'm like a servant in front of my master. How do you pray? How do you hold your hands? Because it's not the way, right. And by the way, talking about arrogant, some people when they sitting, thank God I don't see it here, but I've seen people go like this. No, I would say it's not respect.
I don't think it's respectful anytime.
It might not be respectful anytime, but I would say because you're sitting here praying. Look,
When you're praying, but crossing your feet like this is very different than crossing your feet like this. Yeah.
okay, but even the first way, the question is that a sign of
Not
awe?
for prayer.
Not for prayer, right, not for prayer.
Nothing for prayer.
Right.
Yeah,
Because,
you really can't. This, to me, it's not rude. This first of all, you show the bottom of your foot to the person's.
okay, I hear.
Very bad man.
Okay, but people have to realize, but when you're praying, if you cross your feet, you're not showing the awe. You're praying. There's a certain awe that you have to go ahead and sit in front in the synagogue, and that's not appropriate. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Thank you. So,
I say, the pray barefoot away.
right.
So their sandals are also, you shouldn't pray with the open back shoe. So
Okay.
it's like a whole shoe, not a sandal.
So if you're in Israel and it's
But
common,
they pray sandals, to begin the time.
right? So I would say if you're in Israel, if it's normal, if it's the norm, it's how you would go. But again, the question would be, would you go in front of a king with sandals? It's not maybe respectable shoe so much.
Right.
So therefore, you're getting into that issue. How do you show respect? That's fine. How?
How do you see it? How do you see it?
Right, exactly. What's
People sitting.
it's not respectful. It's inappropriate to sit like that for prayer. It's right because it's not a sign of war. You sit up. It's not a war. You're in front of God.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everybody. I'll see everyone upstairs. Ralph, good to see you.
Same here. This is all new to me.
Okay.
With a belt. What if I wear
Okay.
sweatpants? I don't have a belt on.
All right. So we're saying if you don't usually wear if you usually wear, that's fine. If that's the norm to wear sweatpants, that's fine. That will be fine. You have you have something against your body, that'll be fine. But if you're a person that generally wears a belt every day, now you can't dress down in honor. So you have to put the belt on for synagogue. But that will be the rule. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yes. Oh, look who's here. You'll be in touch about this?